What's up? It's Matt. We're live. I'm back with another restaurant expert, somebody that I think everybody probably knows at this point. Eric Cacciatore, how are you?
Great, man. How are you? Thanks so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. So I think most restaurant people should know you because like 730 episodes into the podcast, Restaurant Unstoppable. And how many years has that been happening? About 3 or 4?
7 years. We were started in 2013, the beginning of 2013. Yeah. It's crazy to think 7 years goes by fast.
This year has went by, it feels like 2 years.
I know, man. Like, it's crazy. I feel like it's going by really fast. Honestly, I can't believe it's already July. It's like, it's been so crazy. I feel like there's been no shortage of things to think about. Like our minds have been so occupied. Like time is just, for me at least, it feels like it can't get over fast enough, but I hear what you're saying.
So tell us who you are. Give us the 1 minute about who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Ooh, challenge accepted. All right. My name's Eric Cacciatore. I'm the founder and host of Restaurant Unstoppable podcast. Like you mentioned, I started the podcast 7 years ago, like we mentioned, to basically just learn from successful restaurateurs. And the idea was, I fell in love with podcasting. I was listening to a lot of podcasts, a lot of entrepreneurial podcasts, a lot of personal growth podcasts. And it was just blowing my mind how much knowledge was out there that people were just so generous with. And I was searching for a restaurant podcast because at this time I was transitioning. I grew up in the restaurant industry. My parents owned a restaurant. I went to school to become a commercial pilot, realized that aviation wasn't my thing. I wasn't truly passionate about it, decided to resign from aviation, and I went back to school for marketing and hospitality. And I created a situation for myself where I just couldn't afford to work in the restaurant industry. I would never make enough money working in restaurants to pay off my school loan debt. I'm $200,000 in debt from becoming a commercial pilot. So basically I was like, well, what the heck am I going to do? So I was listening to all these entrepreneurial podcasts, all these marketing podcasts, all these personal growth podcasts. I was like, why isn't there a restaurant podcast? Why aren't people out there sharing knowledge? What's wrong with our industry where people are so guarded with their information? Why can't we change this? So I kind of set out on this mission to just start talking to people and to do exactly what I was, all these things that were influencing me with all these other podcasts. I just want to recreate that for our industry. And that's what Restaurant Unstoppable is. The mission is and has been to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. And I figured if I could help enough other people accomplish what they want in life, I could accomplish anything I wanted in life, was kind of the mentality I was using. So I wasn't in the position to open my own restaurant, but I could start learning today and I could start sharing those lessons and helping other people who are in the position. And if I can help enough other people, then it will come back around. That's kind of like the fast forward version.
Okay. What part of the country are you located? You're in Arizona, right?
I've been there recently, all over the country, man. In the past 2 years, I've been basically living out of my car, traveling all over. Special shout out to all the people who were willing to put me up temporarily, whether it was in their backyard in my tent or on their floor on my sleeping pad, or if they had a spare room. There's been a lot of people that have been supporting this mission. I kind of just broadcasted it to my audience. Hey, I want to go on the road. These are the cities I want to go to. Let me know if you're out there. I'll come and I'll interview your restaurateurs in your city. And that was the approach. And over the past year, I was able to graduate to Airbnbs, which was nice, a nice transition. So this is being made.
That's a cool service too.
Yeah, right. It is. And now I'm in Austin, Texas right now.
Yeah.
Trying to get some level of stability in my life. Still want to travel on site to do the interviews, but maybe I might fly. Who knows? Getting crazy, right? So
get a little miniature motorhome and do the Restaurant Unstoppable motorhome and stop in.
I might have stopped at 1 or 2 mobile home dealerships in my day recently. Yeah, for sure.
The little trick there, if you're thinking about this, and this also go out to the food truck people or people opening food trucks. One of the things you can do if you're going to do that and maybe do a lot of custom work or build one out, because we used to be an RV dealer, we would have people that would become dealers on paper to get access to wholesale parts and accessories for motorhomes. So they would buy a motorhome they had to retrofit, and instead of going to a dealer and paying 40% markup, they would become a dealer on paper, quote unquote, so that they could just order directly from the wholesaler to get the parts to build out their thing. I've seen people do it with food trucks and food trailers as well.
Well, I think it's kind of funny because I feel like everyone's so drawn to that van life, the mobile life, or even food trucks. You mentioned food trucks, and we think, oh, like that would be like the life, just being able to go anywhere. But the truth of the matter is, like, life on the road is very solitude. It's a very and that's the thing. Like, I don't think being in a mobile home or even a van would have changed my situation, because I'm still alone on the road, and I'm meeting great people, coming across some really amazing restaurateurs. But I mean, it's not like I'm hanging out with them for like the whole day afterwards. I'm not like a lot of it's just, there is a draw to the mobile life, but I would also caution people that it's a very lonely solitude life. So just be wary of that for sure.
Yeah, I could imagine that would be tough for me, because I'm a very talkative person and getting around. So 730 episodes in, I think that's a pretty big number to me, because like I was telling you off air, I run across a lot of people who do podcasts, and like I'm in a podcast, my podcast, NPTV, where I guess we've recorded 29 episodes, because we do it with video. We're about 21 weeks, I think, have aired. And it's tough. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I'm amazed how many people I see that have what I think are pretty good things going, and they stop at 50, 100, 200. I mean, 730 is a huge number. What's kept you going and just not stopping?
I mean, ironically, naming something unstoppable kind of helps you keep going, because you're like, I can't stop. Like, 'cause then it's like, what's it all about? But what's kept me going is the mission. For me, it's always been to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. And I just love being of service. I think what draws me to the hospitality industry is being able to serve people, being able to do something for somebody else and immediately see that they are appreciative of whatever it is I'm doing. And I get to do that. That's what this podcast is. It's a service for me. It's being able to provide something of value to a demographic of people that I love more than anything else. Restaurant owners and operators are the most real mofos out there. Like take me or leave me as I am. Like, this is like, they're passionate, they're authentic, they're hardworking, they're just good, generous. They're the best cut of people out there, in my opinion. And being able to dedicate your life to service of these people, and when they write you weekly saying, hey, like, your podcast is telling me so much, like, if you keep me going, like, it's giving me hope. Like, all that is all it takes to keep going. When you know, we need to be seen. It's a human need to be seen, to be valued, to be recognized. And when you get that fed to you, like, what else do you need? I mean, that's all I need to keep going. But I mean, even a little bit further beyond that is, like, I grew up in the restaurant industry. My parents owned a restaurant, and I remember my mom sitting at the kitchen table crying, trying to figure out how she's going to pay the mortgage. And the thing is, my parents didn't have some like rinky dinky like restaurant that wasn't busy. Like, we had lines out the door every weekend. We were busy. People traveled hours to come to the restaurant, and we were still struggling to pay the bills. It's like, what is going on? I never understood it. Like, what didn't we get? What were we doing wrong? And like, it's close to my heart, because I grew up in the industry, and I know how much hard work it is, and I know how hard it is to make it. And I just wanted to help other good people make it, just by doing what they didn't have the time to do, doing the research and sharing the information. That's why podcasting is so beautiful, because you can just listen, and you can work in your restaurant and still learn and still grow. I'm ranting. I apologize.
You hit on some things that I want to dig into more, because I relate to them. So my background, I've been around marketing for 21 years, something like that. But for a 9-year period in there, me and my brother and dad started a boat and RV dealership.
Okay.
And we went from, like, the average dealer, to put it in perspective, was about 2.5 to 3 million a year in annual sales. We grew in 4 years to 15 million a year in sales. Wow. And I thought that was the pin. Like, oh my gosh, we're one of the biggest. We were like number 3 Yamaha dealership in the country. We were number 1 for a lot of brands. And I'll never forget, I'm sitting there about year 7 or 8, and I'm talking to Mercury Marine, and I'm like, hey, what should my payroll be? What should my rent be? Like, looking through a profit and loss, because I was in my 20s and built this thing with my brother and dad, and I was the person in charge somehow. My dad didn't want to deal with employees. My brother wanted to be more of an employee. He wasn't the mentality of me, like, lead everything. Unbelievable dude, just not what I was. And so somehow I got stuck with everything. So I remember, like, 28, 29 years old at one point, like, sitting there looking at a profit and loss and trying to figure out where we should be. And the part I realized was, I look back, it was lonely, because Mercury, I remember like I had a friend of mine that owned a Chevy dealer, and he's like, yeah, Chevy every month will take our sales and come back and say, your rent is fixed, you know that, but your payroll needs to be this. Here's all your variables. If you stick to these variables, next month you'll make a bunch of money. And I look at restaurants, like a lot of independent restaurants, franchises have a little bit of a cheat system, and that the corporate can give them some numbers. But that independent and even some of the franchises that maybe don't have that intel, you might look and go, man, we're killing it. We're on pace to do $2 million in sales this year. We got to line out the door at these times. And you look at the end of the year and you're like, I paid myself 30 grand and we have negative 10,000 cash flow.
Yeah.
And so that's like, I think podcasts like yours are important 730 times you have asked questions that I can promise you the listeners have all thought, I've been wondering that, or, hey, what about that for me?
I mean, I'm constantly learning new things, and it's funny you started this interview introducing me as an expert, and I don't consider myself an expert. I really don't. I never want to. No matter how much I learn, I never want to consider myself an expert, because I feel like when you consider yourself an expert, like it's like, oh, you think you figured it out, and the thing is, like there's no one way to do this. There's so many different ways to be successful in the restaurant industry. I think it has to do with who you are, what your strengths are, what you're trying to achieve, and there's so many different verticals within the restaurant industry to be successful in. So like the learning's never ending. I consider myself a student, a life student. That's all I ever want to be, and that's all I don't claim to be anything other than that. It's just somebody who's hungry for information and desires to share that information.
Well, I honestly, you're modest, because, and I think a lot of people are. I've always said the same thing, like, Matt, you're an expert on restaurant marketing or on this. I'm like, Warren Buffett's an expert.
Yeah.
Look at what he's accomplished.
He is a lot to learn.
But I think that a lot of us are seeing in that, man. I look at you in that because you've accomplished something at a very high magnitude, and at the same time, I mean, the knowledge you put out in front of people is unbelievable. And to me, spreading that wealth, putting that information out there is, to me, what an expert is from a standpoint of being able to help people out. And I think going back to like the restaurant, like the independent, the lonely road, you talked about being out on the road is lonely. I've told my wife this, and that's one of the reasons I've created masterminds. I have about 4 masterminds a year I go to with anywhere from 15 to 30 people, because it's lonely. Like, my wife doesn't understand my day. And it's like the restaurateur is the same way. You got a husband and a wife. They're working the restaurant, or maybe it's one or the other. When they go home, there's really nobody to talk to about it. And then they're there all the time. They don't have a ton of friends probably in the business. They really, really, really lean on, like, dude, we've got this much credit card debt. We've got this problem. We got this employment issue, or whatever. It's same as like you talked about when you get done with that interview and you have nobody to talk to when you're on the road.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, you don't realize how much you need people in your life. And when you're on the road, I've never was in a situation where I was meeting so many people. Don't get me wrong. I had people in my life, but it wasn't that person that you could come home to and say, this is what happened to me. Like, this is like, there was nobody to bear the load, to work through, to process things with, and that's tough. And I was on my last road trip. I think I left the beginning of September, and I didn't get back until December. I was on the road for almost September, October, November, December. Yeah, 4 months, almost 4 months.
Wow.
And it doesn't seem like a long time, but when you're when you're only spending like 3 or 4 weeks in each city, and you're just constantly moving on to the next spot, like, it's just hard to develop routine. It's weird. I don't want to bitch and moan. That's the last thing I want to do, but I don't know, man. I am fortunate too that I get to do this, and it's my choice that I get to do this. And I'm still doing it, but I'm just learning as I go.
So you said something there that you don't realize how you need people in life, how much you need people in life. I think that's impactful, because when you look at a podcast like yours, I don't know if you've been involved with mastermind events, but the one thing I've seen is that a lot of restaurateurs don't get out of their kitchen, don't get out of the business and go. Like, they go to the NRA show in Chicago, they go to the TRA show in Texas. I don't really see that there's a culture of sitting down with 20 or 30 peers on a very consistent basis. Have you seen that? Do you have any experience in that, seeing that that's worked or hasn't worked?
As far as getting together with people to share knowledge and support, absolutely. That's the best thing you can do. And I think that our industry is coming around in that front, because, I mean, I host masterminds. I've been hosting masterminds for the past 4 years now, and we're really starting to lean into that idea of, focusing on, I mean, I guess I'll get into that later, but I think the industry is coming around. I think we're starting to realize that it's not a matter of me versus you, but a matter of us and we and together. And we might be able to get there faster alone, but we can go much further together. And there's a lot of problems with our industry right now, whether it be the disparity, just the overall amount of profit that we make in the restaurant, the difference between front of house and back of house income, what people are making, racial inequalities, sexual inequality, all these different things. But I feel like we put ourselves in this position. We are the restaurant owners and operators are the ones to blame. Like we put ourselves in this position because we're competing with the person down the street. We're competing against other people. We were alone, not sharing information, not helping each other out, and price gouging each other. And we painted ourselves into this corner because we made it into a me versus you thing. And the truth of the matter is the people who are most successful are the people who are most generous with their knowledge, are the ones who are attracting onto themselves other people, because they know if I go to this person, they're going to teach me everything I need to know to be successful in my business. And it's kind of counterintuitive, but I feel as a restaurant owner, you should be trying to push people out of your business because you're giving them everything they need to do what you do, but even better. And it's counterintuitive, but the thing is, if you really do take care of people and if you develop a relationship with this person, they become an asset. And that's how businesses grow, because they don't necessarily not everyone wants to go off and do their own thing. And if they do, and you have a good relationship with them, then why not just invest in that person? You gave them all of your core values, you gave them your systems and your processes, and you recreated yourself in this person. Why not smack them on the ass and say, go get him, Tiger. Here's $150,000 to invest in you, and I'm going to be your partner now. And now you have multiple businesses and you recreated somebody to run that business. You don't need to be there. You're just investing in the next generation. And I mean, that was like the big picture, but it all starts with just sharing information, sharing knowledge.
It's crazy you said that example. Yesterday, I'm sitting down with a friend of mine and a client also, a guy named Isaac. He's got a place called Better Blend in Northern Kentucky. It's a really healthy smoothie place. He calls it blends with smoothies, awesome stuff. And we're talking about businesses and finding the right people. And he's younger and he's very, very good entrepreneur. And he's asking me some advice on what I had seen work. I said, honestly, be open. And if you can find people like us, realize that there's a good chance in 2, 3, 4 years, they're going to try this on their own. And if you embrace that, it's amazing. Like the CrossFit business, I'm a partner in a CrossFit gym. I've been on a CrossFit for 12 years now. Every CrossFit gym in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky started off of another gym. And it started with animosity. That person was a trainer there. They saw, oh, I can make more money. I can do this on my own. They plotted for 6 months behind their boss's back, and they left and took members with them, and now they're enemies and everybody hates each other. And I've always, at our gym, we've always told our other trainers, hey, we realize that there's going to be a chance in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years that you might want to start your own place. That's awesome. We encourage that. We'll help you get there. We'll partner with you, or we'll just be a friend and help you on that path. I think that's a big issue in a lot of businesses.
Yeah, for sure. Nothing to add to that for sure.
Yeah. So give me, this is a hard one, I'm sure, to put on the spot. Give me 730 episodes, a couple consistencies that you see that need to be addressed, that like, this is what you've seen out of the people you've met with that are they're the ballers. Like, these people do it right. This is 1, 2, or 3 things I consistently see the best people doing.
I mean, I feel like a lot of it's pretty obvious, but you have to remember when I was starting, I had no clue what it took to be successful in the industry. So like, I would say my first aha moment was, oh, systems, processes, procedures. That's the secret to being successful. And I was also relating it back to what my parents weren't doing. My parents were very much the business. If my parents weren't there, there were no business. There wasn't a business. It depended on them being there all the time to function. It was a people-dependent operation, not a system-dependent operation. That was like my first aha moment. Then beyond that, it was like, well, you can have systems and processes, but you can also have too many systems and processes. And really what it's about is retaining your relationships and creating a culture, and culture is more important than systems and processes. And that was like the second like aha moment. And then it was like, well, what's next? I figured it out. I have the formula, systems and processes and the culture. But I think right now, like the next aha is really starting to lean into like the human element of business, learning about human behavior. If you think about what business is just relationships. Money is just a tool to measure relationships. And if you want to be successful in business, it starts with understanding human behavior and how the human works. And if you can figure out how people work, then that I feel like that's like the key to figuring out how business works. I mean, I think those are the three big ones. Like, I'm happy to pull back layers on them. I was trying to be brief.
The systems and procedures relates to me a lot because in those 9 years in the boat business, systems and procedures didn't exist. And it was a glaring, we've spent so much money fixing little things all the time. From a sales standpoint, we are always fixing stuff. And then my business from 08 until 2015, it was me and one person, Ashley, and she was the glue. Like I was a running and gunning, and she was helping me make sure we delivered to our clients what we were supposed to and go over. And then this last like 5 years, we've grown the company from 2 of us to 20 plus. And the thing that's helped us is I just accidentally learned from my coach, Billy Jean, out in California, about systems and procedures, about having 10 employees that each do a very specific thing. It's like my business was equivalent to, instead of having that line cook and the server and the host, we all did the same thing. We all ran around, and those are huge. That's way underestimated. SOPs, standard operating procedures have become huge in my business. When the first person told me what an SOP was, like I'm like nodding my head like, oh yeah, we have SOPs. And then I'm like Googling SOP. What is that?
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, I think when it comes to like systems and processes and procedures, I think people get overwhelmed by it and think like, oh my God, like that must be so technical to be able to develop these things. And it's really not. And I'll be the first person to admit that systems and processes and protocols and all that isn't my area of like, that's not where I shine. I consider myself to be I thrive in chaos personally. Like I'm starting to think I might be an anarchist at times, to be completely honest. But I do recognize the significance of systems and processes. I'm willing to admit that I could be better at doing them. But when it comes down to systems and processes, I think it's as simple as just making a list of everything in your business that needs to get done in order for the business to function. And then from there, it's like, okay, I have my list of everything that needs to get done. How do I do all these things? And not like writing a paragraph out, but just a step-by-step process. Opening, what has to happen to open? Unlock the door, turn the lights on, turn the oven on, turn whatever else needs to be turned on. And it's that simple. It's literally just step-by-step what has to happen. And it can be one sentence. It could be 5 words, and then before you know it, you have systems, you have processes, and it seems overwhelming, but it's really not.
Yeah. Let's put it on the screen here. One of my episodes I did with a guy named Peter Wiley, his big thing was lists. Mm-hmm. He talked about, he's like, Matt, I'm a list. They have 108 locations, rapid fired pizza, hothead burritos, and a hothead cantina. And he said, that's what I'm a big thing, that if you don't open up with a list, if you don't operate with a list, if you don't close with a list, you forget things. And I see it. Like I was at a coffee shop this morning. Now, this is a basic one, but to me, it's a little fact that like it's got to stick out. I was at a coffee shop and I was there at 7 a.m. and I went to the men's room and the paper towels are empty. And it's a basic thing of closing or opening a restaurant, but a lot of smaller mom and pops, they don't have that list. And that's things that stick out to you. At least if you see a lot of inconsistencies, people might not come back.
Exactly. And I mean, it's more than just lists and checklists. And I mean, you mentioned SOPs, standard operating procedures, which is incorporated with the list, but also protocols. If this, then what? So if like the cucka hits the fan, which we know it's going to eventually, then you have the refrigerator stop working. You go into the operations manual, refrigerator stop working, call this number. So you train people to not go to you, but to go to the operations manual when they have an issue. And you're not going to have all the answers on day one. You can try to foresee it as many issues that might come up. And then when an issue comes up that you don't have a solution for, then that's your cue to then put it in the operations manual. And over time, it just compounds. Before you know it, you have a system-dependent operation and not a person-dependent operation.
Yeah, and that's Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, human capital. I mean, a list and a process is only so much. You got to have the people that believe in it, buy into it, and want to do it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like I think you can over systematize your business too. I think that you can try to squeeze round pegs into square holes. Like, and that's the other thing. Like, there's a balance between systems and process, or sorry, systems and culture. And I think it's finding that sweet spot of not having to standardize everything at the expense of, because people aren't standard. People have different strengths and weaknesses, and people have certain I don't know, like
they're built a certain way.
Yeah, like, and beyond that, like, just people want to feel like they can contribute. So if you remove any ability to contribute in any way, then they're just gonna be, what the hell? Why am I even here? Have a robot do this. We're not robots. We, like you can remove yourself from the business too much, where it becomes hollow and there's no culture. So if you can create like a standard of core values, and you can create a standard of making sure everybody's like just pulling in the same direction with the similar vision, I think it's finding that balance of what's the sweet spot for you.
Yeah. So having, hey, this is the goal. This is the checklist. This is our SOPs. This is how we do it. This is why we do it. But I trust when you're a server dealing with 1,000 customers a week, that you're going to probably come up with a way to do something a little different, a little better, that maybe fits your style, or the company needs to be willing to look at it and go, hey, that's a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. And it could be just as simple as saying to your employees, hey, like, these are our systems and our processes, but they're not set in stone. We can make these better. Do you have a suggestion? Is there a way we can improve? And just letting your people be a part of that process is one way to kind of loosen up the rigidity.
I'll never forget going back to the boat and RV dealership and trying, like you mentioned, the square peg in a round hole. My dad, specifically, our top sales guy who owns a big boat dealership now, highly successful guy, Sean Weeda, and then Eric Almy, who was our head service guy. And we all had this is how everybody operates. And I'll never forget, about 6 or 8 months into the process, I was always trying to get my dad and Sean, the sales guys, because that was my dad's main role, to conform to, hey, this is how we do it. And I finally got to a point and I said, okay, these 7 salespeople do their paperwork correctly. My dad and Sean, I just hired Michelle. She's going to clean up the messes you leave. Do your thing. You're an amazing salesperson. The customers love you. You're the best, but nobody can read your paperwork. It's always wrong. And I just came to a conclusion that I couldn't make them do what I thought needed to be done. I had to let them be themselves because they were so good. And then Eric Almy was another one. He was our head service mechanic, and he was young and he was arrogant because he was really freaking good. And for whatever reason, the dude could not wake up. He was supposed to be there 8 to 5. And now, granted, different than a restaurant, that what he was doing was real custom service work, but he would roll in at noon. But he would work till 2 a.m. And I'd be like, Eric, just come in at 8. But he couldn't quit playing video games, couldn't quit smoking weed at night. He just had his lifestyle. And I eventually conformed and said, you know what? You're the best we got. I told our other employees, I hate to make exceptions. The dude is so good. He's not going to listen. I either have to fire our best person or I have to let him be a human. And what the funny thing was, what really pushed me over the edge was we had a security system and I could watch cameras everywhere, 21 cameras. And I remember logging in and I looked and he had clocked out. He came in at noon and clocked out at 8. It's 2 a.m. and he's working. And I call him and go, bro, what are you doing? Working? I go, you clocked out at 8. He goes, I know, but I was 4 hours late this morning, so I'm going to give you 4 hours extra on my time. It's my fault. And he was always working 60 or 70 hours, getting paid for 40. And it's just, I learned at a young age that sometimes you have to adapt to let people be people.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, they say you want to create system dependent operations, not people dependent operations, but like, people don't do business with systems. They do business with people. And we keep lose sight of that. We forget that sometimes. So
let's talk about the yummy side of it, because I think the food aspect, like you were at, I think it was last week, the week before, you were down in New Orleans at the Red Ruby Slipper, Ruby Red Slipper. I always get the name mixed up. What is it? Ruby Red? Is that right?
I do so many interviews. I think it's Ruby's. I don't really focus on the restaurant. It's weird. Like, I don't retain that information.
Yeah.
I focus on the person behind the restaurant.
Okay.
You're going to be disappointed. I don't have a lot of great food stories for me. when I'm on the road, like a free meal is great, but I'm just happy to have a free meal, man.
Have the conversation too.
Yeah, I'm not thinking out about the food, to be honest.
My question is similar, is I guess a little about food, but I'll ask this. I'm always telling people that as a restaurant, sometimes everybody has the same stuff. And like when I saw when you were interviewing them, I had interviewed her a year and a half, 2 years ago for something else, and their menu stuck out to me. Just it looked amazing. Have you come across any restaurants that do stuff from a food standpoint that's just big, gargantuan, or unique that makes that is a reason that's helped them be successful?
I mean, I think what you're talking about is a unique selling proposition, and yeah, if you can do one thing really well, or if you have one thing that nobody can even like come close to you, like, yeah, put that in the spotlight, like make that a part of your marketing plan. I generally tell people, I not tell people, but I like the idea. If I'm opening a restaurant tomorrow, I'm opening a restaurant that does one thing really well and is something that I have the ability to be the best at the world in and known for doing this thing. If you want this thing, go to this place. And if you can find a gap in a market, I'll give you an example. We're here in Austin, Texas. There's no shortage of pizza places in any city, right? No pizza places. Like, yeah, right. There's pizza in every corner of the country right now, right? So you can go to any city and find pizza. But what these guys did in Austin, Texas, the Hunt brothers created Via 313, which is a pizza place, but it's Detroit style pizza. So you instantly become number one at the thing you do in a city if you do something that nobody else is doing. And the idea of pizza is not new, but Detroit style pizza is a very kind of novel concept unless you're from Detroit. But all Detroit style pizza it's kind of like Chicago style pizza, but instead of like a cast iron pan, it's rectangular, and they put the sauce on top of the cheese instead of below the cheese. You know what I'm saying? So
and that, like the cheese on the crust all up, it's amazing.
Yeah, and it's delicious. But so they instantly they found a unique selling proposition. They said we could. I think they even started as a normal pizza place, and they started just fooling around with different recipes, and they started realizing that more people were interested in their Detroit style, just because it was different. It was unique. It was a unique selling proposition.
Yeah, that's I don't know if you've ever met David Scott Peters or not, but he's got a book, Restaurant Prosperity Formula. He mentioned this a couple weeks ago when I interviewed him, and I agree that wholeheartedly. There's a brand near me called Barley Corns, and they have these wings. They're dock-style buffalo wings. Nobody else in the city has them. I go there specifically once a week just for the dock style. And what cracks me up is the price is the same as like regular wings somewhere else. And I'm like, if you're a restaurant, you got to stay in business. And I'm a huge proponent. I think restaurants' prices are too low. I think most restaurants they're scared to raise their prices. Like Barley Corns with that dock style, it could be another $1 or $2 more. I'm not coming. I'm going there to get that. And David talks about that in his book about, making your menu and understanding your menu prices and things like that from a standpoint of unique items.
Yeah. And if, I think it was David who probably was saying, if you have something that's there's different ways you can do it. If you have something that is like your big seller, charge an extra 25 cents, 50 cents. That's it. People aren't going to notice. They're not going to buy it for 50 cents extra. But if you're selling, like, if that's your top performer and you're selling the most of that thing, that 50 cents per item is going to compound. It's going to add up. But we should go based off percentages. We should know exactly what it costs us to make this thing, all ingredients, all labor, all paper, like the wrapping, everything that goes into the cost of making that thing needs to be calculated, and then it's a percentage of that. And that's the kind of knowledge we need to share with each other. So we're no longer price gouging each other. It's a standardized percentage of like, this is what it costs to do this, and we shouldn't settle for anything less.
And he mentioned in his interview talking about tires, and it's the truth. I mean, every business out there, a car dealer, a tire company, a boat dealership, we bought it for this. We mark it up. When we were in the boat business and the RV business, little hint out there, the retail price of almost every boat and camper is 1.335 above what they paid for it. Yeah. That's the starting point, and then they negotiate down. Everybody did that. And I used to look at it. I loved it in the boat business because 99% of the Triton dealers had the TR21 with a 225 Yamaha for the exact price within about $100. And it made us all healthier. And I think the restaurants just beat each other up too much and worry about this guy's price or this deal or this deal.
You should only compare yourself to one thing, and that's yourself.
Yeah.
And that's another big lesson I've learned on the show.
So in ending, what's one mistake or something you've seen out there that is common that you think, besides pricing, that you think restaurants can do a better job of to be more prosperous and retain and have a better life in the restaurant business?
Man, that's a loaded question. There's so many things that mistakes people make. I think one that comes to mind is that I think we touched on a lot of it, just like not creating the systems and processes and procedures to remove yourself from the business so you can have a life. But I'm not recommending that people open a restaurant and create these systems and processes so they're not a part of it.
Yeah.
I think you should want to be in your business. I think you should want to. That's why you should do the thing that you love to do in your business. You shouldn't just automate anything. But
you should also have freedom, though.
Yeah, but I mean, to compound off that, what I see a lot of people getting in trouble is they scale too fast. They think of growth as outward, like we need to make more money, so we need to open another restaurant. But the idea that like if you take all that energy, growth doesn't come from outside in, it comes from inside out. You put all that energy into how much money can I make with this business? What are the things that I'm not doing good enough in this business to be more profitable? When you get to the point where there's when you're comfortable that there's nothing else you can do without sacrificing quality or a relationship or whatever, and the business can't get any better, and you have people that are working for you that have hit ceilings left and right, and there's no more room for growth. I say two things: cash flow and people are what determine your growth, right? And if you don't have the people, and if you don't have the systems to operate, if you're not there, then you can't scale, because you can't be in two places at once. So I think scaling too fast is something that people get in trouble with. They just don't have the people or the cash flow to scale, and they're too hungry for growth. They're too hungry for more, and they're just not patient enough.
Yeah, I ran across a restaurateur last year that is a good guy, and he had one business restaurant, and he opened up a second. And I remember when he did it, it surprised me, because I could tell from the outside looking in, he wasn't killing it here. And in my mind, if I'm not killing it here, why am I going to replicate something that's average? I want to dominate, like you say, and then maybe do it. And within 6 months, that location was closed.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, people get in trouble, they just start chasing money, in the sense that they're like, okay, like I need more money. I need money to open my restaurant. I'm going to go out there and get money from wherever I can to open my restaurant. And then what ends up happening is you have all these people who have given you money, and really whoever puts the money in makes the decisions.
Yep.
Now you finally get your dream restaurant, but you can't make any decisions in it because you have so many liabilities. So just being patient, starting where you can, even if that's just doing pop-ups or having dinner parties at your house, start there, and then put the work in and slowly scale, and let cash flow and people determine your growth. You don't have to get that dream restaurant that you've dreamt about your entire life tomorrow. Have a goal to get there in 10 years, and just put the work in and slowly scale and stay at it.
I love it. So we'll sign off. I want to share the website here. Is this how? Tell us how we can support you, how businesses can support you, how they can sponsor you, and also where they can find the podcast.
Thank you. So it's restaurantunstoppable.com. Thank you for bringing up the website. If you wouldn't mind, I mean, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but if you go to restaurantunstoppablenetwork.com is our current project. And I mentioned earlier that like over the past 2 years, I've been driving all over the country, meeting more people, and still never feeling more alone in my life. Restaurantunstoppablenetwork.com. And basically what we're doing now, this awakening I've had over the past 6 months, is that I want to slow down. I'm still unstoppable, but I want to be more intentional and go back. I mean, like I've had at least 700 people on the show. Like, who were the people who made the biggest impact on me? What has changed over the past 5 years? And go back and put more time and energy into those relationships. Life is all about relationships, man. And I think that's kind of, where I'm at now with Restaurant Unstoppable is realizing that it's the 80-20 rule. Like 80% of your profit, your livelihood is going to come from 20% of the people in that business, your most loyal customers. And that's where Restaurant Unstoppable is going right now. We're not trying to scale. We're not trying to get bigger. We're not trying to get more downloads. We're trying to take care of the people who are already listening to the show. So Restaurant Unstoppable Network is a way for me. What we're trying to do right now is we're trying to bring all of our past guests, all these mentors, all these incredible restaurateurs. We're trying to recruit them to this community, and our most passionate, unstoppable listeners, our super fans. And we're saying, hey, like, you guys can't have access to these people normally, but through me, I can try to collect these people and bring all these people together and just kind of go off this idea of sharing knowledge. And we're gonna have we're gonna have monthly themes. So our first month is going to be culture. Our second month is, I think, we're going to do financial operations. And the fourth month is going to be, I think, just general operations. We'll probably have David Scott Peters come join us. We'll probably do marketing, and you fill in like legal, personal growth. We're going to have a bunch of themes. And the idea is I'm going to go back through my network and find the people who I've come across who are the best at that thing. If I'm opening a restaurant tomorrow, here are the people I'm going to. We're going to get them back on the show, and we're just going to round off a bunch of content. They're going to be live events, kind of like this. So if you're listening to the show, you can now join the interview live and do a Q&A. You get to ask your questions to this expert. So we're just slowing down and focusing on relationships.
I love it. I love the cost of not joining. I love that line. I mean, it's a small price to pay to get tapped in there. So $2.99 for a 90-day mastermind, $29 a month for the Restaurant Unstoppable Network, and $9.99 to get the network group plan. Okay, cool.
The group plan is kind of cool. So basically, our thought with that is that if you're, as a restaurant owner, wanting to join this network, you can bring 4 of your team members, your leaders, if you're the owner, you can get a membership for your executive chef, your general manager, your pastry chef, your whatever fill in the blank leadership team. So now you're not going through all this stuff by yourself. You're going through it with your team and bringing them in on the information.
I love it. So it's www.restaurantunstoppablenetwork.com. They can find the podcast on, I'm guessing, pretty much every podcast platform that's out there.
Yep. I think they're on all of them. Last time I checked, we're on most of them.
Yep. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate your time. Keep doing what you're doing. I love it. I think you're doing probably the best job of anybody out in the industry of helping get information out there, because that's what we all need. That's what people like myself need, restaurateurs need, guys like David Scott Peters. We all need to learn from others and become better at what we do so that we can provide a better product.
Beautiful, man. Thank you for this opportunity. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
You're welcome. Thanks, sir.
Cheers.